Okay, so welcome again back to the topic, selection of a product that will be offered abroad. This is a key set of decisions that will help you make an assessment. How big are your chances for internationalization? How successful are you going to be? And what are the keys that you can play on this internationalization piano? So let me show you what it depends on. Actually, that all comes down to the creating of competitive advantage of your company in the foreign market. And that will be the result of three different things. As you can see, one of these things is a competitive advantage of your product. So what you have is a value or is an excellent deal, and it has the potential to be internationalized. But there are other factors as well. There is also a competitive advantage of the industry and a competitive advantage of the whole country. And that all combines creates the competitive advantage for you, for your company, to be able to be present abroad. And we will start with with a competitive advantage of a country. So a wider look. What are the factors that contribute to your country being competitive in that particular area? And we're going to be supported here by a model that is called Porter's Diamond. This is the Michael Porter, right? The one from the 5 market forces. And he also came up with a model that is called the Diamond. It's based on this 4 blue, how do you call them? Rectangles, yeah. And these 4 forces represent the key aspects of the economy, and if they interact well, as a result, you get a strong competitive advantage of a country. So what are they really? Let's start with production factors. Production factors are all the factors that are connected to actual production, which comes down to access to resources, access to ingredients, access to labor, which will be skilled or inexpensive, access to finance, access to research, access to institutions that will support the development of your production processes, right? So these are all production factors. Then, on the other hand, we have demand conditions. Demand comes from the market, right? The demand is defined by the amount of products that your customers are willing to buy right now at this price, in this time, and in this place. Yes, so this is the economic definition of demand. In marketing, when we say demand and market, we mean your customers. So what are the demand conditions which contribute to competitive advantage? If you have a demand that is sophisticated, so your customers are demanding, your customers want more, your customers are not easy to satisfy, that will push you to come up with a better product. If you have a demand that is quickly satisfied, that means that you will have to come up with new products to substitute for the old ones. If you have a demand that is early, and by early demand, I mean that nobody in the world wants what your customers want, then it gives you this pioneering advantage. You're going to be the first to offer something, you're going to test it before it's offered abroad. For example, nowadays we talk a lot about the alternative energy sources. One of them is wind power. And there are countries like the Netherlands that have been using wind power and the windmills for centuries. So they already have experience, they already have the know-how, and they can easily transfer that knowledge, know-how, and products abroad for other countries to use, right? In Poland, we don't have it. We use the solutions that have been developed in other countries, right? So our demand for those products was non-existing. What else helps? It helps if your customers are quite well off. It helps if your customers if the demand is fairly sizable. So these are the elements that contribute to this aspect of competitive advantage. Then we have the presence of what we call supporting and related industries. And that means that you are not the lone player in the market. Whatever you do, there are other industries that support your operations. So, for example, there are institutions that support your financing. There are institutions that provide you key ingredients. There are companies that offer you logistics services or warehousing services or design services, whatever you need, right? That you operate within a network of cooperating companies, and that helps you develop your resources, your skills, your know-how to a better place, right? And you can use their expertise and you can become better instead of being the lonely player that has to do everything themselves, right? So we don't want it. That slows you down. But if you have those supporting and related industries, especially in your area, then everything keeps flourishing, everything keeps developing much quicker. That's why you can often meet in many countries what we call like special economic zones or industry parks and business parks. And that means that you get lots of like-minded companies in one place. And because of that co-location comes cooperation, right? And you can benefit from their knowledge as well. And then we have the fourth element here is strategy and structure and competition of companies. So that comes down to a little bit of the market structure and the competition strategy style. And that again relates to some extent to culture and historical conditions that we have. So the structure of the competition is basically, do you have many companies, small companies, like it's called monopolistic competition. For example, the restaurant market is monopolistic competition because you have hundreds of restaurants and each of them has their own menu, their own prices and so on, right? Or maybe you can have oligopoly, which is just a few big players and then they share market, each of them having a big part of the market. Or you can have a monopoly, and that's good for the monopolies, but not for anybody else, right? So there are different structures of the competition, and there are different styles of competition. Sometimes companies fight each other. Sometimes they try to find this cooperation, or it is actually called it's a combination of collaboration and competition. They make like one funny word. Maybe it will return to me. Sorry, not now. And then we have this management style. In some countries, and I'm going to be simplifying a little bit, but in some countries, you have this very ordered, structured, long-term management style, like German companies. It is no coincidence that they are excellent at automotive industry, chemical industry, and so on. That requires precision, timeliness, like due diligence, long-term planning, and so on. And it actually works very well with the German organizational culture and work ethic and so on. Then on the other hand, we have Italian companies that tend to have more flexible, agile management style. They are often family-owned companies with a single, very decisive leader that makes big decisions. And these companies are not good at just kind of being precise and timely, but they are really good at being creative, at being innovative, at doing things different way. That's why in Italy, for example, we have a strong market for luxury brands, for clothing, for jewelry that requires a little bit of flexibility, more like letting yourself go and just like exploring options rather than planning years in advance, right? Well, if you had a choice and if you could choose a brand for your clothing, would you prefer it to be German or would you prefer it to be Italian? That's a question.
I prefer Italian clothes.
You prefer Italian, yeah? Yeah, I'm with you. What about cars? Would you prefer Italian cars or would you prefer German cars?
German class.
German
cars. Yeah.
cars, German cars. You
German
see?
except Ferrari.
Except Ferrari, yeah, I am with you. There is always a rule and there is always an exception, which proves it's a rule. Okay, so here we have it, right? There is a certain style, and also what we're saying here now, it sounds a little bit like stereotypes, but this is actually the competitive advantage of country. because this is what they excel at, right? And we know it because we have great brands that support that that theory. And also, these four elements, we also have a role of government. So sometimes governments play a certain role by supporting supporting local companies or supporting international companies, or maybe offering some financial aid or tax waivers and so on and so on. So the government can also help, and that is not limited to law and regulations. It can also be from like support of research and development, or maybe education or engineering, or like some kind of branch of education that is needed for your particular business. And then last but not least is market opportunity. So these are things that happen by chance, but they can change the course of actions for some companies. So it could be like a breakthrough invention. The internet was one of them. Now, market opportunity or threat comes with the development of AI. That can be a result of some events taking place. For example, countries joining European Union and suddenly the market becoming bigger, or countries leaving the European Union, like the Great Britain did, and that also changed the equilibrium. Yeah, it could be change in the importance of location of a particular of a certain country. For example, New York used to be a financial capital for the world. Now it moved to Hong Kong, Singapore, because of the importance and growing markets in Asia. Unfortunately, events like wars, that's also a market opportunities for some businesses, right? Because like Switzerland became neutral during the Second World War, or nowadays with the war in Ukraine, and then we have also opportunity for like heavy industry to develop now, or to help rebuild the country later. Okay, that's sad, but anyway. So what I wanted to say is that there's a number of factors that are in play. And once you look at them, they all contribute to creating a competitive advantage of a country, and especially for particular industry. As you can see, what's written at the top, it does not apply to the whole economy. It applies to particular industries, and it can change. It can change pretty quickly. So the example that I have comes from Italy, from Emilia-Romagna, and that concerns ceramic tiles. I'll just go very quickly. They are very good at ceramic tiles, and that came from the fact that when they started in the 50s, they had a growing demand because the country was destroyed, so they wanted to rebuild it. People used the tiles. The customers in that region were demanding. They were well off. They had the money, and the companies created specialized showrooms that kind of help people make decisions. In terms of production, well, climate helped. Not, I mean, like it's something you cannot deny, right? You use ceramic tiles in hot climates. They had the resources of red clay. They had qualified technicians and engineers. They had the capital in the region. And the University of Bologna started a department or a faculty of engineering that also specialized in these processes, now supporting and related industries. Emilia-Romagna is the region when they did do a lot of processing of clay. So there is a pottery industry, production of the machines that you need, transporting companies, design agencies, advertising agencies, and also a trade association for the tiles. As for the strategy and competition, family style management, a huge number of companies, it grew over a decade from 14 to 110. So you can imagine that the competition was intense and there was a high geographical concentration. And all of that led to the situation that they had to be the best to survive, and they had the right conditions that supported this development, and that's why they still remain a very prestigious and sought after distributor or producer of ceramic tiles. So as you can see, this is how it works. And also, if you have a country that has many strong industries and that has high recognition from various aspects in the world, your country can become a brand. Well, actually, every country is a brand, but some brands are stronger, some brands are weaker. And this is just one of the propositions. This is not set in stones because different agencies, different organizations have their own understanding of what contributes to a strong country brand. But I took this one from the Future Brand because they have an index that they occasionally update. And I have this updated index for you that I'll show you in a moment. But it tells you that when you look at a country, there are two general aspects that come to mind. There is status and there is experience. Status of a country comes from the value system, which includes politics, environmental standards, general well-being, tolerance, openness, quality of life, health, education, standard of living, safety, and so on, business potential, right? And then there is a second part to it, which is experience. Experience, status is what is. Experience is what we feel, what we go through, and so on. And here we have heritage and culture, so natural beauty, points of interest, art and culture, tourism. Is it good value for money? Is it safe? Do they have the infrastructure? Is food tasty? And then we have the made in effect. Can they create something unique? Is it high quality? Is it authentic? And so on. So as a result of that, and this is a question to you, what in your mind is a top country brand? So when I say country as a brand, what comes to your mind as potentially the strongest, the top, the best brand? I have a ranking, I'll show it, but I'm open to your ideas now. Maciej.
Whatever product, it's fine.
Okay, yeah. Go on.
For example, chocolate. I think so. Switzerland is one of the best.
Okay, Switzerland for chocolate. But if we take the product out of it, just in general, country as a brand, the strongest brand. You say Switzerland.
Lindt, I think so.
Okay, but this is a brand for a product, and I'm talking country as a brand. So Maciej, what's your take?
And then we'll China, get back. For example,
China is the strongest.
China is cheaper, and I think so. You can get whatever you need. And many countries, for this reason, are checking with them raw materials.
Okay, let's see. Now, Maciej, what's your take?
Germany.
Germany, you say Germany. Okay, Nick, what's your take? Nicholas. No?
No, nothing, sorry. I just like...
Okay. Muhammad, what do you think is the strongest country brand?
I think Thailand in tourism.
Thailand, okay. Claudia, what is your opinion?
I'd say maybe Italy.
Italy, okay. Yijin Kim, what do you think is the strongest brand in terms of countries?
I think Japan, it's a tea.
Japan, okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, Mustafa, you raised your hand because I just wanted to stop this, but yeah, go on.
The US.
And the US. Here we go. So this is what we think are the strongest brands. And now these are all your guesses, which seem to be pretty accurate, but the actual ranking says, and this is 14, 15. I'm going to show you the updated version in a moment. It didn't change much. But when we look at countries as brands, and that was done systematically, they collected all the information, surveyed lots of people. So they have Japan as number one, as the strongest brand. Switzerland second, Germany third. You guys all said it, so you knew it. US is number 7. I don't see China here. So China must be somewhere lower. But I mean, in general, all your guesses were, you were naming strong country brands. The current result, or the most current result, which is 2020, it basically shows the same podium. It just changed because we had Switzerland. Oh, no, it didn't. Okay, Norway. Norway moved up. I'm sorry, because I knew that there is some kind of a difference. So Germany went 1 place down, Norway moved 1 place up. But that's the result of a ranking. Like rankings are subjective and so on. But when you think Japan, and Japan has proven to be the brand, country brand number 1, what comes to mind?
A good quality in the product.
Good quality, excellent. What else?
Food.
Food, yes, good. What else? Anything
Toyota.
else that, sorry?
Toyota.
Toyota, okay, so auto manufacturing and the brand Toyota, very good. What else?
Technology.
Technology, excellent, good. So we have it. And look how smart you are. This is actually the result of this survey that they had. They assessed Japan, you know, in this variety of dimensions. So it's too small. I will put it on the presentation so you can have a look. But look at what words do people use to describe Japan. That's all that you said: food, technology, electronics, and so on. And what else did you guys say? Sushi, that's food. It's beautiful, it's advanced, it's fashion, it's anime, and it's civilization, shopping, origami, and so on. And then when we look at brands that are associated, Toyota is of course one of them, right? So also that means that there are strong brands that you know that come from that country. So now let's do Germany. What comes to mind?
Cars.
Cars, good. What else?
High quality.
High quality, excellent. What else?
Beer.
Beer, good.
Yeah.
What else? Any particular brands?
Like
Football.
Mercedes-Benz.
structure and
Yeah, structure, Maciej says. Denise says Mercedes, right?
Audi, BMW.
Yeah, BMW, right? What else? Anything else that comes to mind when you think Germany?
Mercedes.
Mercedes, yes, okay. Any kind of food in particular except of beer?
Currywurst.
Okay, so sausage. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Summary of perception, it is what it is. And you can see order, right? That's what you Maciej said, right? You said something to that account. Beer, of course, right? You see, it's a big one. Technology, automotive, serious, beer fest, castles, advanced, power, efficient, football. Oh, nobody said football, right? So here we go. Somebody says peace in German. That's interesting. Yeah, but it's accurate. So now when we talk about brands, these are the top brands that people associate with Germany. You guys said BMW, you said Mercedes, right? This is all accurate, but there is also Lufthansa, Siemens, Adidas, Bayer, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, right? So as you can see, the strength of the country as a brand and this competitive advantage comes from very many aspects. And when you look at your product, at the country of origin, at the characteristics of the industry, you can see how much of a competitive advantage you already have because you come from that region with that business, with that heritage. And now when we look at the product itself, the key two decisions, the key two strategies are quality and price competition. You can try and do both, but this is advanced gymnastics. Typically, and it doesn't mean that it's not possible, but it means that requires plenty of resources, expertise, and so on. But typically, companies tend to lean in one of these two directions. Price-based competition, and I have an example of Walmart, which is like Biedronka in Poland, right? Or Kmart or something like this. And that means that with this strategy, companies primarily compete on price, which means that they want to keep the prices as low as possible, and they attract customers which are sensitive to cost. It doesn't mean that the customers are poor, but it means that customers are price sensitive. They are reasonable shoppers. They will look for value for money, and money will be an important aspect of that. The strategy in general means that you lower prices to get market share. You try to keep your prices as low as possible, and you will be compensated by the large volume of sales. Typically, if you have cheaper products, people tend to buy more of them, right? And you can enter a market quickly because your price is attractive. It is relatively lower. The advantage of that strategy is that you can have large base of customers and you can increase sales volumes. So you can sell a lot to a lot of people. But also bear in mind that you typically need to have the production capacity, right? You have to be able to produce that many products. So the disadvantage is that it can lead to lower profit margins because you will be shaving your profit margin in order to keep attractive price. And also it may result in what is called a price war, which is a direct competition between two companies saying who's going to sell product the cheaper. And the only winner is going to be the customer. But you as a company, you are going to experience decreasing inflow of money because you will be responding to your competitor by lowering your price. So if you have really good processes and production capabilities and a large economy of scale, so that means that you manufacture a lot of stuff, then it makes sense, right? Because you can afford that. But that means that you are huge, you're selling simple products, mass produce, you keep your communication to the simplest, you use only the most efficient distribution channels, and you're basically inexpensive, right? And you have decent quality, but nobody is going to say, hey, like I like this product, it's really good quality. People will say great value for money, period. Okay. So the second or the opposite strategy is when you have a quality-based competition. And that means that you compete on perceived quality, durability, perhaps innovativeness, advancement, and customer satisfaction. So that's what you want to keep. You want to have customer service, you want to have good quality, you will have relatively higher price. It doesn't mean that you have to be luxury, but it means that you will offer decent price for good quality, right? So it means that you will have to heavily invest in research and development, high quality materials or ingredients. If that's chocolate, and that chocolate stays in my mind, that means that you have top quality cocoa, right? And you have the right certificates and it is beautifully packaged. And you have, I don't know, if you put almonds in it, these are the mild almonds, which are fair trade harvested at moonlight somewhere, like in some special location. So you play with that to create the high perceived quality. You want to have a strong brand that you will support in communication to justify a higher price, right? They will not be Biedronka products, right? They will not be Walmart branded products or no-name products. You will wear proudly your brand and you will support it. The advantage, it builds strong loyalty, it allows for higher profit margins, and you can have like a group of those people who really love you, like this really loyal niche market. So that's an opportunity. But the biggest advantage is that it really allows you to have those decent profit margins. You can ask for this higher price because people believe it is worth it. Okay, so it is not price that attracts them, it's the quality, it's the experience, the customer service. So you would typically go for smaller markets, perhaps a little bit more sophisticated, and people who are not that price sensitive. People who will say, I like, like we have the saying in Poland when we say that we are too poor to buy cheap things. Because with cheap things, you expect them to wear out quickly. You expect them to lose their characteristics and you have to buy them again. And we have the saying that we say we prefer to buy something more expensive right now, something of better quality, and just keep using it for a longer period of time. So what is the disadvantage? Well, obviously, the investments that you have to put in technology, research, innovation, quality control, and also your target market is going to be smaller. And if you stop meeting the quality expectations, then you're out of business, right? So these are the factors that contribute to the selection of the product and creation of a competitive advantage of your company, right? So we're looking at type of competition that we have, and we look at the strength of the industry, and we look at the strength of country that will support your expansion. Denise, there is a question I can see.
Yes. I mean, if you start like a company, it depends on the place, I mean, location and product that you will sell, to check both consideration and obviously the finance that you already have. I mean, these are the 3 key points to choose of both, I mean.
Are we talking about the real business, or are we talking about
real business? Yeah,
the real
if you want
business?
to start like at once.
I think that the real business should start with a product that you believe that has potential. Because once you, I mean, like there are different paths, okay? One is that there is an opportunity and you just take it, right? So you just learned about the market niche, you just learned about some kind of a opening, and you enter, and then you play by rules. But if you make a strategic, rational decision, the first question should be like, what do I really have, and how is it placed within my business context so that I can get leverage? So that would be my way. And then once you see that you have a good idea and that you can get the leverage from your industry, from your domestic market, then you basically should start developing this thing. But the reality is different from theory. The reality says that there are multiple paths, and even the most unexpected ones sometimes lead to a success when you have people who decide to do something against all odds, and they are fully successful. So the answer is vague because the topic that you touched is like really, oof, you know, like if I knew how it really works, I would be a business person. And and I'm a teacher, right? So so you can see that my practical expertise is kind of limited here.
Don't worry, thank you.
Okay, all right. So let me move to this very important. It's going to be brief, but it's a very important part of this course in general, and that's and this is also an important part of your project. When you decide which international market do you go to, right? Because as I said, the project is about internationalization of your company's operations. So now I'm going to show you how it is done in general, and this is a little bit like a follow-up from Denise's questions. Like, so how do you really do it? How does it happen that you become internationalized? And there are actually 3 ways of doing it. Let's start from the bottom one. It's a client approach. And that basically means that you have some good customers of your company, and they start operating abroad. And you say, okay, I'll follow, right? My best customer starts working in, let's say, Germany or France or, I don't know, like Korea. And I say, well, if I want to be their trusted partner, I will have to follow, right? So in this case, it's not really that you make the decision, but you follow your best customers and you do what they do. The second approach, we call it naive because it is based on your gut feeling. So it is a simple process, and you just make a decision because it is, you think, you know, and you think it is similar. So you say, oh, you know, I've always wanted to travel to France. Let's move our company to France as well. Let's choose France as our destination market. Because, you know, it's a nice country, I mean, like nice people, great food, I know, right? Developed economy. So, and as you can see, this is a very subjective process based on my kind of like assumptions that I have in my head. Or maybe, you know, myself, I've been many times to the US. I studied there during my master program. I studied there as a postdoc. So I am familiar with the market. Let's go there. Because it feels like a good decision. Is it a good decision? The time will show. Probably not, but you never know, okay? Again, it's business, so miracles happen. But what we are going to discuss, what I'm going to show you, and what you will test today is a systematic approach. And that is fully informed. This is the ideal version. Again, ideas do not exist, but still, that means that you go through a proper preparation and you make decisions in a in a way that you start wide and then you narrow it down and then you narrow it down and then you narrow it down and then you have it. You have it in writing that this is the country that actually fits best your requirements. So it is structured, formalized. Sometimes it's based on, if companies do it, it's based on forecasting, on modeling, on like estimations and so on. We will not do all of these horrible things. We will do it all kind of like on paper on a limited number of countries. But what is important here, the importance of that process, is that it tells you what criteria are important, because you have to make sure that you select the right criteria to make the right decision. Like that's the example that I give. If I wanted to divide you people, I mean, like I have, let's say, how many people are there today? I have 23 people in my class, and I want to decide who is going to be my destination audience, right? And I can say, well, the criteria that I'm going to use, I'm going to ask how tall you are and what color are your eyes and your country of origin. These are easy to obtain informations, but this is absolutely irrelevant to what I'm doing, right? Because I teach marketing, I'm a professor, so I supervise theses, I do research. So how tall you are, what color your eyes are, where you're from, it is completely irrelevant, right? What is important is, are you interested? Are you active? Are you willing? Are you smart? I know you're smart, right? So then let's focus on the remaining three factors. So the key decisions here is to pick the right criteria to assess the countries, collect the data, compare, and then decide. Okay, does that make sense for now? Okay, so let me show you the procedure. Hold your breath. It is going to be, like a little bit complicated, but when you see it, it is 3 stages or 4 stages. We will go only through 3 of them. Anyway, it starts with a subjective analysis. So in general, phase 1 means that you have what we call a preliminary identification of countries. So you decide on regions in general where you want to be present, because you have to start with something. You cannot start with an analysis of 280 countries, everyone from the world, right? You already know that you want to stay in Europe, or you want to go to Southeast Asia, or you want to go to South America or Central Africa, right? So that's the first stage, and you get quite a few countries as a result. Then you go to the second phase, which is based on actual data. So you look for data for macro criteria, and this is where our pestle analysis comes in place. You collect the data which is relevant, you compare it, and as a result, you end up with several countries. Depending on how detailed your analysis is, it could be, like 20, it could be 5, right? But that's up to you. It depends with how big of a market you start initially. And then for these few precious selected markets, you go deeper. You go into operational criteria, and you collect more precise information that is more about the industry, the competition, kind of like Porter's 5 forces. And you compare it, and then you again come up with, like either a winner or 2 countries or 3 countries. The last phase, and this is the phase we're not going to do, is profitability assessment. When you conduct proper financial analysis, you have the optimistic scenario, pessimistic scenario, realistic scenario, and you play with different factors, and this is where all this modeling and estimation comes in place. So as you can see, the systematic review, selection of a country comes in those steps, phases. And each time you narrow it down and you collect a different set of information. So I am going to go through these 3 phases in a little bit more of a detail. I will not go into too much detail because the presentation is, it is already on the campus. I am going to make it visible to you in a moment so that you can have a look, but I will just give you the outline of what it's going to be like. And the task sheet that we have for today is based on this procedure. So starting with the primary identification of countries, we go for general proximity. So something that feels to you geographically accessible, culturally accessible, mentally similar. So very subjective, very general criteria, and that often comes from your knowledge, from your intuition, from your experiences, and some secondary data, right? So that can lead to a big group of countries, and as I say, general directions like European Union, or maybe Middle East countries, or perhaps North America, which is just 2 countries. Phase 2. That's when that's where the fun begins. You go for what we call macro criteria, and this is a typical division of environmental dimensions. So, like extended PEST or PESTEL analysis: political, legal, economic, demographic, technological, cultural, physical. We're going to go through them in a moment because this is the international environment part of the class that I have for you today. Within this information, within these dimensions, first of all, you have to find aspects which are relevant to your operations. If you manufacture chocolate, sorry, Maciej, that's going to stay with me today. If you manufacture chocolate, then probably technology is not that important because it is manufactured, right? Maybe geographical access to markets and ingredients will be more important. Perhaps political is less relevant, and demographic and cultural more, right? So you have to focus on these aspects of the environment which are more relevant to your business. If you do in AI, then I think geographical aspect is irrelevant, but technological very much, right? So here we go, and you look for data that comes from those accessible databases like the World Bank, OECD database. There is a Eurostat, World Trade Organization, or any kind of a database that is nowadays present online. You can access the information, you can get the information. What is important here? That you first of all have to have the right criteria of comparison, and you have to make sure that they are measurable. So it cannot be just descriptive when you say, oh, there is a good political environment. What does good mean? What does not good mean? You have to find actual, like data. For example, is there an act that regulates this? Do they have sanitary requirements? Do they require any certificates, right? So you have to find actual information. When you say, oh, we want to have a country with big population, what makes big? 1 billion? 1 million? 50 million, right? You have to be precise. So once you have it, you define what is the minimum requirement. For example, you say, oh, we want to target people who are relatively affluent. So then you say, how much do they have to make per year? And of course, it can be it has to be a number, but you can use some point of reference. So you can say, oh, like the average salary for that country is that. So I want people with above the average or the salary above the region, right? So that's how you decide on those thresholds, right? That's how you decide on the minimum requirements or the level. And then you basically eliminate the countries that do not meet it. You say, I want a big country, at least 40 million people, then Poland, sadly, is out of the competition, right? Because we are 36 right now. So that's how this stage works. Is that clear so far? Okay. Now, the third phase. The third phase is a little bit more in-depth, and you look at what we call operational criteria. It is important in your project and also in real life, well, why not, to make sure that you do not use twice the same criteria, that you have different criteria that come from PESTEL, different criteria that come from the operations. And here the dimensions are demand, costs, and risks. Yeah. So you can look at the demand, like you said, and the demand can come like for, is your brand known? Is your brand present already there? Do people eat a lot of chocolate in this country? Are there many competitors? That's actually for costs. Is this market prestigious? Do you get like the privilege of the image of country of origin? in this country, right? So these are demand related elements. Then we have costs. For example, how far is it if you have to send your product out? Are there any taxes? Are there any tariffs? Are there any limitations on accessing the market? Is the competition intense? Because if it is, then you have to try harder. If there are not many competitors, then you can be, like the new one on the block, and you may have some benefits coming from that. Is this market similar to what you have at home, or will you have to modify everything? And you have dark chocolate and they want one white chocolate, and that's a completely different process, right? So these are the elements of cost. And then we have risk, like, is it politically stable? Is it a developing economy? Are there any issues? Are there any tensions? Is it close to a war zone, and then people don't want to buy imported goods because they have other things on their mind, right? So these are all the elements that you assess here, and you try and find more detailed data, right? And basically. Nowadays, the good news is that there is plenty of market reports that you can get. And the idea is that probably it will be difficult to obtain ideal information, but you want to get as close as possible. You want to get as relevant information as there is to help you make the informed decision. And this goes in a similar way. The only difference is that once you identify these criteria, in this case, you go for the a little bit different assessment, because it is not enough to meet a certain level. In this case, you have to define how important the criteria are. So let's say you have 3 criteria, which is the number of competitors, the average spending of consumer spending per category, and likeliness, or I don't know, corruption index. So we have 3 criteria, and you have to decide which of them is the most important. I would say the most important is the demand, so I will give it a weight of 50%. And then I would say competitors 30%, and then the last one, corruption, 20%, right? So I decide on the importance of each criteria. I collect the information, then I assess each of the country in terms of that criterion. So the country that gets the best, I don't know, has the biggest demand for chocolate, the biggest chocolate consumption gets 5. The country that has the lowest get number 1, right? So there's a ranking. You put these countries in a ranking, and then you multiply assessment times weight. It sounds complicated, but when you see the template, when you see the task sheet, it is going to be more self-explanatory, because I put it in a table, right? So it is a little bit different, but still, in the end, you keep the country that has the best outcome, the best result of that calculation. Is that fairly clear? Okay, excellent, good. So there is chance for the future. And again, please remember, if you struggle at any point with that task or with that, like especially for your project, contact me, email me, I don't know, meet me, and we will go through that, and we will revise it so that you are in a safe place. Okay, and that brings us to the second part of the class, and I'm hoping to have it done within the next 40 minutes, which is international environment. It is a big topic, so I'm going to be going pretty quickly, but the idea of that is that I'm going to give you like food for thought, and then that will hopefully inspire you to look for this relevant, more detailed information for your project, for your company, and so on. But in total, we have different kinds of environment. There is domestic, the one that you know. There is foreign, international, the one that you are not that familiar with and that you need to find out. There is also micro environment, which is more like industry related, and there is macro environment. This is what we're going to discuss right now. Micro environment will be helpful for the operational criteria for phase 3, number 3. Macro is for phase 2. And these are the criteria that are beyond your control in short term, and you just have to be aware. You have to monitor the trends, and you have to be kind of as prepared as possible for potential changes. So as you can see, we have a few, actually we have 6 different dimensions. So I will start with economic, because that's probably the most important one, right? Because that reflects the general condition of economy of a country, and it tells you how well the country is doing and how well the customers are doing. You still have to be aware that many of these indexes, that the indicators that we have here, and I'm going to show them right now before I keep talking, they are often average for the country, right? So average is kind of like, the logic is that me and my dog, we have 3 legs each. The truth is that I have 2, my dog has 4, but the average is 3, right? So you have to be aware that like GDP per capita is a very gross statement of how well the economy is doing. So it actually makes sense to look for those other more specific indicators, like average salary or wage or consumption, the amount of your budget that people can spend on this free consumption, right? After they pay the bills and so on, there is a certain amount of money that is left, and they can, that's typically spent on consumption. So other than that, you look at the economic growth, you look at inflation, currency exchange rate, if that's relevant, because you're going from Germany to Poland and there is a currency exchange, right? Unemployment rate, and so on and so on. So these are the key indicators here. Just one thing, okay, as you can see, this is the distribution of GDP all over the world. So the darker, the bluer the color, the better. So obviously North America, Australia, also certain parts of Europe, this is where you have high GDP per capita. Asian countries, especially Northeast and also Southeast, then it's acceptable. Then it gets relatively worse in South America, then Middle East, and then Africa, right? So obviously, just because there is a low GDP, it doesn't mean that the country is excluded. You can still have a type of economy when there is a growing class, how do you call this? High class. Yeah, there's a middle class, lower class, and this high class in society, and they are open to new experiences. But it just gives you a general view of the economy, and the countries which are more receptive to international products are the countries with good, stable economy, with a lot, what we call a middle class, right? Because if you have stratified, diversified societies with very rich people at the top and huge amount of very poor people, this is not optimal. The optimal developed economies tend to have the majority, like 80% of middle class people, which means people who are well off, calm, and ready to spend money on imports, let's say. GDP, as I said, it is not ideal. It is a good starting point, but it does not reflect the real purchasing power, as I said, when there are different social classes or different levels of development within the country. Then obviously that is not reflected by the GDP. In poorly developed countries, a lot of products are self-made, self-produced. So, Poland used to be a really poor country during socialist times, but we had everything. Simply because, we knew how to make things. Like my grandma would make those things, like knitting, right? And she would knit sweaters for me. She would knit many things, and I had to wear them. They were beautiful, but absolutely unfriendly to wear, because if you have woolen stuff, then it's itchy and everything. So a lot of stuff can be made at home, right? You can make your own preservatives, you can grow your own vegetables, you can have your own chicken and eggs. So in poor countries, there are a way of dealing with the fact that there is not much money. There's also barter, right? I give you chicken, you give me milk, and we're both happy, right? So that's also a problem with the GDP. Many purchases are not correlated with income. Some of them are symbolic, some of them are status-based. For example, perfume. and people will say, oh, like I like this perfume and I will buy it even though it's expensive, just because it is so important to me. It's a status, it's a symbolic thing, right? Sometimes it's because of your family, right? You have suddenly 3 kids and you cannot use a regular car anymore, right? You have to have a bigger car because that is your family status. And then, as I said, the societies that have very diversified income levels, then also GDP just doesn't say much about this thing. Another thing within the economical aspect that is worth looking at is the economic integration. So I will go quickly through the levels of that, but the idea is that it makes sense to operate and to take advantage of certain economic zones or integrations or unions, because they will offer you some benefits. They will make the exchange easier. So what can they be? For example, free trade areas. They don't have internal custom barriers, like NAFTA, right? North American Free Trade Agreement. So you can move products without paying internal taxes. The next level is a customs union, like Mercosur. This is the South American Union. So you not only have internal customs, but also common external policy, right? So you can move goods within, and when you export them, there's a unified policy. Then the next stage is what we call a common market. This is how the European Union started. In addition to those 2 below, you also have free flow of goods, services, people, and capital. So you can transfer money, you can relocate your workforce, and you can easily sell all over the union, right? And that was the European Free Trade Agreement at the beginning of the European Union. Then we have an economic union, which is what currently European Union is. And in addition to all of the below, you also have harmonized monetary, fiscal, and social policy, like Eurozone, right? You have the same currency. So the policies are very much harmonized, unified, which makes operations easy. And then the last, we have political union. As you can see, there is no actual example. The only one that I can think of is the United States, which is actually a separate country, but it is a country that operates on the political union premises, because they have those states that have their own regulations, and then you have regulations on the federal level. So it combines all of the below, plus gives you this unified legal, foreign, and internal policies, right? So that's what you might look into to make sure that your operations are easier. And just to give you a clue, I found a map, so I'm going to use it against you. And you can see that there are different unions in different parts of the world. So you can find connections between certain markets based on their history, based on their on those agreements that they sign, and some of them, like South African countries, seem to be in some kind of a customs union. Then Central Saharan countries, then you have customs and monetary union, and so on and so on, right? The European Union and stuff like this. So that helps you with the decision to internationalize. Then we have political and legal environment. So we're getting a little bit deeper into the political system, into the governments, into various organizations that represent the country. And we have to be aware that these regulations and this general mindset can either promote foreign cooperation, because they can, enter those agreements, they can create special economic zones, they can offer some tax waivers, or maybe, some other benefits that will help you be present in that country and start your operations. They can interfere. So they can put limitations like quotas on export or import, embargoes, special taxes to protect their market, or they can get involved somehow. For example, they can offer support to the locals. they can offer some subsidies, some extra money to the locals to support them. And that is a way of interfering with the exchange, right? Because they make the competition a little bit unequal. So when we look at this political and legal environment, we want to see in general, what is the political risk coming from the stability of the country and the political system? So what is the general feel? Are they changing much recently? Are you in risk of like money transfer, that you will not be able to take the money out of the country? Or maybe when you build a factory, they can nationalize it and you cannot take it anymore. Or maybe they will interfere with your operations. They will, for example, make you use local assembly or resell part of your production in a domestic market, right? So these are the aspects that come with this political stability. And then we have also an aspect of sensitive industries. Some industries are considered to be of strategic importance. And we are returning to that thing a little bit. I thought, like, when I had this lecture years ago, I would say, oh, like we are now all interconnected, cooperating, and so on. But we can see that nowadays, with various political tensions happening in the world, many countries grow protectionist. They become protective of their markets, and some of them are of this strategic importance. And this is certainly food-related industries like agriculture. Chocolate is for fun, right? This saves the mood, doesn't save people. But agriculture, like those staple foods and so on, that's very important. And like many countries want to keep their own production and will protect it against all odds, just to make sure that if we are cut off, then we can still survive. And you can see the outcome of what happens once this inflow or this cooperation between countries gets broken. Because when war in Ukraine started, Ukraine was the source of grains, of wheat and stuff like this for Central East Asia, for India. And once they were invaded, and that the production, the supply chain was broken, suddenly India realized that they lost the most important source of their food, and things got very expensive very quickly. And India, as you will tell me in a moment, is a huge country, right? So that had a huge impact on the economy. So other strategic industries, that's military, mass media, anything that is either newly developed, you're starting it, for example, like some, I don't know, maybe gaming industry, or like some high-tech technology industry. Maybe also industries which are in recession. Like in Poland, it is mining, right? We have mines in the south of Poland, coal mines, and we are protective. Even though it is expensive, it is not efficient, but it has tens of thousands of people working there. So we want to keep it protected because it's a very sensitive part of our history and economy, even though if it's not financially effective. Then you also have to look at particular legal regulations. For example, are there any demands regarding the safety, quality, intellectual property, branding, maybe labeling or taxes? Sometimes there are regulations that say, oh, if you want to work in this country, you actually have to have a special permit, or you have to register, or you have to pay extra tax. So, for example, I learned recently that when you start a company in Ukraine, unless you make a profit, you don't pay any taxes and you don't report. So you can start a company, and if it's dormant or not really bringing any financial results, then you just ignore it. While in Poland, when you register a company, you have to start paying taxes and all the duties to the government, right, to the ministry, because otherwise you are in a very, very deep trouble. So there is a difference in how you start business, what your responsibility are, and what are the legal regulations here. And finally, last but not least, you have to look at the restrictions. Are there any standards required? Are there any visas that you need to have? Is there a requirement of the use of local components? Or maybe there will be some custom duties, or maybe something else, right? So you have to, these are all the elements of this political and legal environment that have impact on your country. So if you choose your destination country within a certain union zone, when many of these things are unified, it is going to be much easier, as you can see, right? Because of the similarity of certain regulations and familiarity of certain processes. Then we have technical and technological environment. Technique and technology are surprisingly two different things. One is about actual tools and activities. The other one is about know-how that you use. And in this case, you look at different elements of the environment that again are relevant to your company, to whatever you do. So there is a number of those very general things, like the general level of expenditures of research and development, how many patents, how many inventions, especially in your field, there are, what is the level of development, what is the technical culture, because there's a difference between development and culture. Develop means that you have high-tech solutions. Culture means that people use it. So, for example, India is a country of discrepancy. They have high level of technological development in certain areas, but at the same time, they have low level of technological culture because most people don't benefit, don't use these technological advancements, right? So there is this difference. Then you look at infrastructure, education level, research institutes, and general innovativeness of enterprises. And there are indexes, right? There are indicators that you can search, and you can actually find data, and you can easily compare it. So attractive markets are the ones that are the best fit for your company. If you sell chocolate, sorry, Maciej, as I said, it stuck with me. If you sell chocolate, then probably expenses on research and development or innovativeness of companies, that's not much relevant, right? So you have to make sure that you find the elements which make sense from your company. If you sell some weird phones, then yeah, okay, then this technological aspect, technological culture, the general level of innovativeness, that will make more sense. And I also found, just to kind of make it a little bit more colorful, I found data from this is actually 2025. The source is OECD, and you can see the general research and development spending per country. So the top spending happens in Israel, and we can only guess why. But we have the second circle, which is South Korea, Taiwan, Sweden, and US, and that is very well correlated with the innovativeness of companies and the general image that we have. If we look for Poland, because we are half patriotic, Poland is in the fourth circle. So we spend roughly 1.6, 1.5 of our GDP per investment for research and development, which, as you can see, makes us not really progressive or important player in that field, right? So you can find this data. And obviously, as I said, there is a number of other important factors to be considering. Logistics and transport infrastructure. Can you actually send your product there? I mean, like, are there railways, highways, airports? Can you send information? Do people use internet? You know, like in Europe, we're used to internet being all over, but if you travel outside, it's not that obvious, right? And probably US is worst because they say they are so innovative, and then you go off the highway and there is no internet, right? So you know, like, things that we take for granted are not necessarily so in other locations. So the banking system, financial institutions, is it developed? Is it accessible? Is it inexpensive? Again, Poland, I don't know if you know it, but we are one of the top countries in the world in terms of electronic banking and all of these applications that we have, and online banking and so on. So this is very user-friendly, and it is not because we're so innovative and so on. It is because we started late, and we don't have the baggage of previous systems. We never used checks, we never checkbooks and so on. We actually processed pretty quickly from cash to electronic money. What else? Okay, certain service factors, whatever you might need, research, media, advertising, financial, I don't know what else there can be. Quality support, stuff like this. Mass media, obviously, because you needed to communicate. And details, like, I don't know, what kind of socket do they use? What kind of, what are the parameters of the power grid? Do they use 110? Or 220, what is it, volts or watts? I don't know, I'm bad with that, but you know what I mean, right? So different countries, different regulations, and you potentially have to adapt your operations. Then we have demography. We're really rushing through that. So demography is important because it helps you define the size and structure of demand for your product. Knowing how many people and what is the structure of the society, that will help you estimate the target market for your product. So what you want to know really is how big the population is and how quickly it grows. What is the age structure of your population? Because no matter what you say, even if you think that your product is for everyone, it's never so. There are always kind of like groups of people that will like it more, right? So knowing the age structure is important. Household size, geographical distribution of the population. When we talk about affluence, the money they make, this is economic dimension also very much correlated. And the social structure, so the classes, castes, and the general discrepancies between consumer groups. And now the question: what is the biggest country in the world?
I'm not sure, India or China, because they are changing every month, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody cares to take a bet whether it's India or China?
India.
Do you know how many people?
1.5 billion, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Close. I
Billion
mean, like
1.3.
1.3, right? Okay. I have data from 2024. India, 1.45, almost 1.5 billion people. China, 1.42, let's say. As you can see, the difference is only 31 million people. Size of Poland, let's say, right? And what you can see, interestingly here, India has grown in the last year by almost 13 million people. That's how much it's growing. China, on the other hand, is shrinking. A little bit over 3 million people. That was easy. What is number 3? Don't Google it, just tell me. I've Googled it for you. Take a risk. What's number 3?
Russia.
Sorry?
Russia?
Russia, okay. What else?
No.
The US.
Okay. Anything else? Any other bets? Give me like the top 5 so that we can see. You say there is Russia, there is US. What are the other big countries that you know?
Indonesia.
Indonesia, all right. Okay.
Nigeria, maybe.
China.
China?
Japan.
Japan. Okay. Japan. And Mohammed, you said what?
Nigeria.
Nigeria. Okay. So let's see what it is. I know it's easy to know the winner, and I'm not really making fun because I wouldn't know anyway. I'm just smarter. Not smarter. I'm wiser because I prepared this list for you. So let's see. Number 3, the United States keeps growing, as you can see. Number 4, Indonesia, almost 300 million, right? Then we have Pakistan. Nobody thought about this country. Nigeria, Mohammed said so, right? Brazil, Bangladesh, Russia, number 9, still almost 150 million people. Ethiopia, Mexico, Japan, Egypt, Philippines, Congo. And these are all the countries above 100 million people. Right? So as you can see, lots of big countries. And what is important here, it is not only how big the population is. This is the map of population by 2020. And as you can see, in 2020, India was 2022, sorry, was 1,417. That's 3 years ago, and now it is 1,450. So it is growing like crazy, okay? But it is not only how big the market is. What is also important is how quickly it is growing, right? This growth rate really makes a difference. And as you can see, Europe and parts of East Asia, including China, it is fairly stagnant. But the countries which are developing and growing quickly, the most quickly, are African countries and also Middle East and India, right? So you can also see that the market will be changing in forwards. I mean, like to become bigger and bigger, and that is determined by birth, death, and also migration, right? So that's also the thing that plays a role here. As I said, another thing that is quite important is the age structure, because your products are typically offered to certain group of customers. So in some countries, you have what is called a rapid growth pyramid. That means that you have many kids, and the older people get, the fewer there are. Or you can have a negative growth, which is also very common in those developed countries, when you get fewer and fewer children, and the population of elderly, I mean, like adults and elderly people keeps growing, right? So as much as this is the challenge for the welfare for the country and so on, from marketing perspective, these are only opportunities, right? It simply means that there is a segment, especially in marketing, you know, like those elderly people, this is a segment that keeps to be overlooked, because lots of marketers are actually young people, and we like to think and offer products for people that we understand, which is people like us. And as I'm growing older and older, I do understand that this older generation better and better. And I can see that there is a lot of demand that is not satisfied. So this is actually a market opportunity to also think about those markets and offer them products that have not been offered before. So this is the age structure. Some statistics from the European Union, the freshest that I found, which are from the last year. And as you can see, that the European population is getting older. So we have 1/5, which is over 21% of people who are 65 and older. And nowadays, 65 is no longer old. These are still people with means, with energy and time to spend the money, right? Children are below 15% of the population. So you can see also that within the countries, European countries, and all the countries, there are differences. And as the median age of European population is almost 45 years, the oldest people are in Italy and the youngest people are in Ireland, right? So this is roughly the statistics. This is the population. And as you can see, the comparison between 2009 and 2024 is that the number of younger people is shrinking. The number of elderly people and older people over 50 years old, is systematically growing. Another thing that is good to look, especially when we offer, and as I said, we're focusing on B2B markets here, but also it is good to look at the household size. And by household size, I understand what is like a typical family. As you can see in the European Union, about 50% of households have one child, 40% have two children, only 12% have 3 and more, and 13% of all of those are single parents household. When you compare that, there is a difference between, you know, like countries, cultures, and so on. And I also found some statistics with biggest households. And you can see that in Iraq, the household constitutes of 7.7 people. And it can mean that they have more children, but it also can mean that we have multi-generational families living together. When I was a kid, in my house, there were 3 generations. There was my grandma, my parents, and me and my sister, right? So we have 3 generations, and it summed up to 5 people per household, right? So there are differences in culture. There are differences in how many children you have, whether you live alone, whether you share the house with your spouse, partner, or significant other, and so on, right? And that translates to actual consumption habits, to the number of products that are needed, to the size of the households and the requirements, and so on. What is interesting in the US, for example, and it could be very different in different countries, is that along with time, we have households which are shrinking in terms of number of actual people constituting a family, but the size of houses is growing. So we are fewer people living in bigger places, and at least in the US, this is the trend, right? So you will have like parents, or like 3 people living in a house, let's say parents and a child, but they will have more space to feel. They will have, for example, a laundry room. They will have a garage for 2 cars, which implies that you have to have a special washing machine and a drying machine and 2 cars, and so that has implications for the consumption patterns and the demand which is present. The last thing that we have from this demographic part is geographical distribution of people, and that also makes sense when you select your destination country, because obviously some places are way more crowded than others. Europe is fairly equally populated, but as you can see, in some countries there are tendencies that people will live on the coast, or they will live in the central part. And if we look closer for Scandinavian countries, you can see that for Sweden and for Norway, people tend to live in the south, and the north is fairly abandoned due to geographical aspects and weather aspects, right? So that will tell you also a little bit like where to start, where to place your, shop, maybe headquarters, maybe the showroom, and also will help you understand the distribution of the people and of the population. Okay, then we have geographical environment, and that is especially important for, well, if your product is physical and physically present. So let's start with climate. Sometimes products will need adaptations because of the climate. For example, you will need higher sun-proof factor for cosmetics that are sold in sunny places. You will need special ingredients in gasoline that is sold in cold places. This Walmart in Argentina is an example of big companies making big mistakes. And Walmart, which is a US company, decided to open their flagship store in Argentina. They decided that the best time to do it is Christmas. So they came with special Christmas edition with heavy jackets, boots, and so on. And when they went for the opening, they realized that December in Argentina is the middle of the summer, right? So understanding climate, how it works on a global scale, can be helpful with your operations. Then we have topography, which is how the natural environment is shaped. Are there mountains? Are there rivers? Will they interrupt the flow of your product? For example, in South Korea, which is a mountainous peninsula, there used to be very little cooperation between East and West because they were divided by a mountain range, which created a physical barrier for logistics, distribution, and so on. And only when they actually created tunnels and passages, which is over the last 15 years, this cooperation flourished. Then we have access to local natural resources, depending what you need. Maybe you will need some cocoa beans, or maybe you will need some, iron or copper or something, or maybe wood for production. So you have to check if they have it. Then, especially if you are into clothing and household appliances, then what is called anthropological features of residence is important here, because it refers to our physique. Like, how tall are we? How heavy are we? And these are my statistics. The Dutch are the tallest Europeans. Men are over 1.80 meter, and women are over 1.70 meter. And the average German person weighs 83 kilo, while the average Portuguese person weighs 9 kilo less. And now imagine that you make lifts, elevators in buildings. That has a big implication how many people you can let on the lift. When I went to Korea, it said 11 people. When I go back to Poland, it says 9, which means we're heavier, right? The lift has the same strength, but we are simply heavier, and you have to calculate that for the safety. And also, like if you make clothing, it has to come with different sizes, longer sleeves, longer legs, maybe just bigger sizes in general. Then also look for potential natural dangers, hurricanes, floods, tsunami, earthquakes, and so on. And finally, the last topic that is becoming more and more prevalent is environmental awareness. So that means that we are more and more conscious about ecology, we are conscious about packaging, about the impact, the carbon footprint that we leave. And in some countries, there are more and more strict regulations and conceptions about it. And you often have to play with that and make sure that you satisfy these requirements. So the last but not least, my favorite, but I'm still going to go quickly through that, is cultural environment. So culture is a big, big thing. And this is awesome because it is something that you don't realize that exists, that there are differences, unless you actually experience it. So the best way to learn a country is actually a culture is to go to a country that has a little bit different culture, and then you are in for a shock and discover. According to definitions, and there are many, culture combines tangible and intangible results of human activity, or it can be ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular country or society, or, and this is the one that I like, a collective memory of a country. And that means that culture actually comes from very many different elements. For example, traditions, religions, politics, art, literature, philosophy, science, and technology, ethical values. And this is something that we learn. We are not born with culture, we learn it, we accommodate it, we accumulate it. It's called acculturation process. And culture also changes with time and with the influence that we have from outside of our culture. And that's the beautiful thing. And unfortunately, because culture is so subjective and so deeply ingrained in what we do, it can also be a source of conflict because you cannot discuss values. Values are what they are. You cannot judge traditions. You will not debate which religion is better or superior or inferior. But people have those convictions in them, and it is a very, very sensitive aspect of what we do. So it plays well if you are aware and if you can cater to those cultural differences to use them and to benefit from them at the same time. There are many different theories about culture, and because this is not intercultural communication, I will just bring up to your attention one of them because it comes with a very useful index that you can use for your projects. You are probably familiar with Gerd Hofstede, Dimensions of Culture. They cover several elements. One of them is power distance. So this is the acceptance for inequalities, hierarchy in society. Then there's avoidance of uncertainty, which means how well you tolerate risk and ambiguity. That gets translated to innovativeness, for example. Innovative people have high uncertainty avoidance, high tolerance for ambiguity. Then there is individualism or collectivism. Some countries are me countries, and they say I am the most important, and it is important what I think. Other cultures, other societies are we societies. So they think about groups, families, communities. And this is what is important. And we play for the good of the community. There's a different communication the different narrative that you have to apply in order to accommodate these differences. There is femininity and masculinity. Masculinity is the preference for achievement, assertiveness, success, heroism, while feminine societies, feminine cultures prefer cooperation instead of competition, modesty instead of success, and caring, networking, stuff like this. Then we have short versus long-term approach. So whether short-term approach means that you are very much rooted in the past and you think about the present. Long-term approach means that you are aware of your past, but you keep thinking forward and you keep planning for the future. So you don't say, like, doesn't matter what happens after I die. You say, I am planning for my future generation, for my kids, for my grandkids, and their grandkids, and so on, right? So there's a different logic with that, and you will have different decisions, right? Those who say protect our planet, they have a long-term approach. Those who say climate change doesn't exist, short-term approach, because, like after we're gone, we don't care. And then we have indulgence versus restraints, like how much freedom do you give to yourself, how much pleasure is allowed, how much fulfillment of your desires is acceptable. And I'm mentioning that because there is actually a website that has this handy tool, and when you have a certain set of countries, you can have this comparison in different aspects, and you can see graphically. You don't have to collect the information is collected for you, and you can see the differences, right? So for example, France is the most individualistic of the 4 countries that I selected here. The Poles have the biggest uncertainty avoidance, so we don't like taking risks. China has the longest time orientation, and at the same time, it has the lowest indulgence factor. So as you can see, it is a handy thing. Again, we know that cultures change. They are very much dependent on person and so on and so on, but this is just an interesting thing to use. And then finally, culture and marketing, they do interplay quite a lot. So when we talk about elements of culture which are important for our marketing operations, please pay attention to language, so that you translate things right, so that you decide what is the right language of communication, that you are aware of the brand names that you use, whether they sound well in this culture or maybe not necessarily. Language is also non-verbals. How much do you use gestures? How close do you stand to your customers? So these are all elements of culture. Then we have religion. We talked already a little bit about religion. It has influence on certain goods, on social roles. Food, for example, some foods are eaten or not eaten in certain religions. It is a very, very sensitive issue. Then we have different consumption patterns and habits. Like, when do we have meals? What do we eat? Who do we eat with? Like, why do we do it this way? How much time do we spend? How much money do we spend? For example, when I go to Spain, I am shocked that you can have a dinner at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. This is resting time for me. My biggest meal takes place at 5. So when I go to Spain, I suffer because at 5 everything is closed at 5, right? Because they don't really eat at that time, and it is a shocking change for me, right? People in France commonly drink wine with their food. People in Germany, they drink beer. Brits have tea with milk, and so on and so on. There are plenty of differences in how we eat, and food has huge impact on how we behave, how we operate, and what we do. And we have aesthetics, which comes with lucky numbers, lucky colors. Like in Europe, 13 is the unlucky number. In Southeast Asia, it's number 4. So, like different shapes that people like or don't like. Colors, then colors also have meaning. Like white, for us, it's innocence, cleanliness, while in other countries, it can be mourning after somebody's death. And also aesthetics cover the actual placement of products, like, for example, washing machine apparently is one of those. Some people have a special laundry room for a washing machine. Other people put it in their bathroom. And then there's a group of people that puts washing machine in their kitchen. Why? I have no idea, but this is apparently somehow country related and culture related in how we use all of these products. And then last but not least, we also want to know what is the attitude of people towards foreign products. Are they open, accepting, tolerant, liking maybe, or maybe not? Maybe they say no, like the best products are from Poland, buy Poland, right? Buy American, buy Irish. You often have those campaigns that support the this ethnocentrism, right? And especially people get ethnocentric about food, because we always said that our food is the best, right? So that's one of the topics that is very much sensitive and that is very much dependent on culture. And with that, I am going to finish what I'm saying for today. I am going to stop sharing. I want to see you people because I'm going to put you in those teams again. Are there any questions? Is there anything that you feel I have not explained or that I should explain more for now? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, no, you're just overwhelmed because I went like a machine gun Kelly. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I am going to, this presentation is already on campus, so you can have it for your let's say, use. There is also this market assessment and selection form that you have. It actually, well, I don't know if I can open it right now. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I will try to open that on campus and show it to you so that you know what to do. You sure you don't want to say anything? No? Well,
No.
okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, so thank you for your honesty. Okay, here we go. This is the campus thing. You will have half an hour to do your task. And I'm just going to briefly explain that to you. You have more time, and I can extend the deadline until the end of the day today so that you can do it at ease. But what you have here, you have what I call a worksheet. Can you see it right now, or is it hidden? Can you see? Yes, so, you can, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the names of group members. No, this is not the one. Sorry, I opened something.
This was the last task, right?
That was the last one. Yes, thank you. I have to scroll further down. Okay, here we go. So this is the one for today. And it says, it's a mini case study. So it says that you are the owners of the company that offers solar powered mobile phones. The purpose of this task is to walk you through the market selection process on a particular case so that we can find relevant information. There is information about phones and so on. Phase 1. Which general region is more suitable for your product? Central Eastern Europe or Southern Europe, and why? Your guess for the product that you offer. What is the better region? Central Eastern Europe or Southern Europe? What do you think?
Southern
Of course. Why?
Europe. Sun.
Here we go. Congratulations. Okay, so that's the justification, and this is the logic, and this is the connection between what the product offers and where you're actually going with it, right? So the first task you have already accomplished. Congratulations. Now let's move to the second one, just to go briefly. Then I'm asking you to list 3 countries in the region that you think might be good for your product, and this is just your guess. And then for these 3 countries, you do macro analysis. So that means that you tell me what criterion will you use? So what is the factor that you want to compare the countries by? And what is the minimum level acceptable? So when you say GDP, then how much of a GDP? And I'm encouraging you to be precise and to keep the relevance for the market, for the product, and so on. Don't give me like very general things. Try to find something that comes from the pastel, but is relevant to what you make. And then you compare it, and then you choose 2 countries that fit your requirements best. And then there is phase 3. And phase 3 is operational criteria. And as you will see in the presentation, it is demand, it is cost, and it is risk. I'm asking you to name 3 criteria, which will be, in your opinion, relevant. Then give them weight, the importance, how important. The weight always sums up to 1 or 100%, right? And then you assess the countries, you put them in the ranking or whatever, you give them any number between 1 and 5, and you multiply the weight and assessment, and you will have some number here. When you sum up the numbers for the 2 countries, you will see which of the countries received the highest score. Is that clear, more or less? I think it will come from the practice. I tried to make it very limited. And then again, if you have any questions, then I am going to try and pop into the how they're called, breakout rooms, or you can just try to fish me outside. And if there are any questions later on, you can also email me, or we can meet online at some point to have this discussion, okay? Are you ready? Where is the enthusiasm? I stopped talking.
Only
We're ready. Thank you. We're
Sorry,
ready.
I only have one question before
Yes.
you leave. Assessment, I know that we will put like 1 to 5. It's not a problem. But how we can calculate the weight, the assessment weight?
It is your general expertise, and you think that in this industry, something is going to be more relevant, more important than something else. So it is what we call an educated guess. You are educated people, you already know a lot, and it is for you to create a ranking of criteria. So it doesn't matter if it's 0.33 and 0.47. You just give it roughly. The idea is which of the criteria has the strongest impact.
But in the theory, they don't have like a rank. I mean, like a rank that you can use can you base on this rank in order to say, oh, that is 1 and this is 5? For example, I'm not
You're
sure.
talking about the weight or about actual? No, there is no rank like this because it is very much product dependent, market dependent. Something else will be important for food industry. Something else will be important for mobile phone industry. Something else will be the most important for education or health.
Then only in this part of the table, we need to put numbers, right? And we will have like a score, even if it doesn't have a sense.
Well, it should have a sense because I will ask you for justification, but let's discuss it once you get there so that we have an actual table and a more practical discussion, okay? I will enter your room, I promise. So now, do you know your groups? You know your groups. Okay,
Yes.
so let's see. I will create 5 rooms and I will ask you, do you know what group number you are? Yes, you know, because it's on campus.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, so let's see how that works. And if not, you can ask me and I can tell you what group number you are. I'm creating 5 breakout rooms and I'm asking you to join yours. So number 1 is Mustafa, Francesco, Maciej, Yukina, Leonard. Number 2, Nicolas, Denise, Eugene, Claudia, and you. Number 3, Marina, Angela, Valentina, Hema, Lena. Number 4, Lola, Hema, Jorge, Claudia, Hui. And number 5, Mohammed, Huang Tu, Władysław, Leticia, and Elena. And number 6, as I just learned, it is Nihat and Aydin. Okay, are you all on board? Let's do it. If you have any question which room you are, you can still ask because I have it open. People, you're good. Okay, Denise, your room number 2. I can see that you're still hesitating.
I don't know how to enter the room.
You probably have to just choose the room and click join. That's what it looks, at least on my screen. When you are on Zoom, it should show you breakout rooms in progress. That's what it shows to me. and it shows room 1, 2, 3, and I can join each of them. And you, Francesco, you should be in room
Yeah, room 1, I think. 'cause
room
I
1.
am-
Yes, that's correct.
But I don't know, because I don't see anything on the screen. Maybe I can try to quit this
Okay,
meeting.
I can put you in a room.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah. Room number 1. Okay,
Yeah,
Denise,
me
do you?
also, please. 2.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2, absolutely.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I can do that as well. All right, good. Oh, sorry guys, I will turn the recording off. Just I wanted to ask you if you